I was staring at my computer screen, trying to finish the quarterly report when my phone unexpectedly rang. Ellie, my 24-year-old youngest sister, spoke with excitement in her voice. "Do you have a minute? I want to talk about something." I pushed aside a stack of papers, my hands still typing. "Yeah, I'm here, what's up?" Ellie continued, her tone full of enthusiasm. "You know Mom's 55th birthday is next month, right? We're planning something really special." I paused, shifting my full attention to the call. "What do you mean?" I asked, curious about what they were preparing. Ellie lowered her voice a bit, as if to create suspense. "We've decided to organize a getaway at Blue Ridge Resort. Everyone agrees Mom deserves a truly memorable trip." Hearing that, I thought the plan sounded great. Our mom had always cared for the family and rarely took time for herself. But Ellie quickly added, "We need everyone to chip in for the costs." "What do you think?" I cautiously asked. "How much are we talking about?" When Ellie named the amount, I nearly dropped my coffee cup. The figure was higher than what I had spent on my last summer vacation 2 years ago. "I know it's a lot," Ellie quickly added as if anticipating my reaction, "but I think it's worth it for Mom." I held the phone, sighed and nodded in agreement. "All right, I'll transfer the money now." Ellie cheered excitedly. "That's great! Oh, one more thing, make sure to keep the whole week free. Don't plan anything else, okay?" I frowned slightly, feeling like everything was moving a bit fast, but I agreed. The following week I was swamped with work and meetings, leaving me little time to think about Ellie's plan. Every time I asked for details, Ellie would just smile and say, "Everything's being taken care of, you don't need to worry." I didn't think much of it, assuming they had everything under control. Time flew by, and Mom's birthday was quickly approaching. On a Saturday evening, our whole family gathered at my parents' house for dinner. The atmosphere was lively, filled with laughter and chatter. While we were eating, Ellie suddenly looked at me, smiled and said, "We finalized all the plans for Mom's birthday. Next week, we're all going to Blue Ridge Resort." Mom beamed with joy, and Dad had already started talking about the outdoor activities he wanted to try, but when I asked about my role in the plans, things took an unexpected turn. I sat silently in my chair, staring at Ellie, hoping my youngest sister would laugh and say this was just a joke, but everyone at the table remained strangely quiet, as if waiting for me to agree. Finally, Ellie broke the tension with a sickly sweet voice. "You know, Mary and Jack, Jessica's kids love spending time with you. And with Mike's 3 kids added in, they'll definitely have a great time being with their amazing Aunt Jillian." I frowned, my voice catching in my throat. "Wait, what do you mean, you want me to watch all 5 kids?" My mom immediately interjected, her tone gentle, as if trying to soothe me. "It's just for 1 week, Jillian. You know your father and I aren't able to keep up with the little ones anymore, and your siblings could really use a break. You're so great with the kids and they love you." Her words felt like a knife piercing my heart. She didn't even ask if I wanted to do it, they had already decided for me. I turned to Ellie, trying to keep my composure. "So, everyone already knows about this? I contributed money, took a week off work, and now you expect me to stay behind and watch 5 kids while everyone else enjoys the vacation?" Jessica stared down at her plate, avoiding eye contact. Ellie, however, tilted her head nonchalantly, as if this was no big deal. "You understand, don't you, Jillian? You don't have a family or kids to worry about. Besides, you don't really enjoy loud places like resorts, so this is the best arrangement for everyone." My heart felt like it was being squeezed. Those words echoed in my head, over and over. You don't have a family or kids to worry about. They had planned everything without asking me, without caring about how I might feel, treating me as nothing more than an easy solution. After all the years I had sacrificed to support this family, this was my reward? I was nothing more than a sidelined figure, someone they thought would always agree, no matter how unfair the situation. I stood up, my voice shaking but filled with determination. "If that's what you've decided, then I won't stay. I've already given too much of my time and money to this family, but I won't do it without even a shred of respect. I wanted to be part of Mom's vacation, but if that's not possible, then I'm not your babysitter either." I turned and walked away, leaving their stunned faces behind. My heart ached, but I knew this was the first time I had ever put myself above them. I spent the entire night tossing and turning, thinking about what Ellie and Mom had said. The feeling of being undervalued, of being seen as just a convenient solution, left me both angry and hurt. The next morning, after calming down, I decided to try a different approach. One that was reasonable and fair. I picked up the phone and called Mom. She answered on the third ring, her tone sounding as though she already knew what I was about to say. "Jillian, I know you'll understand. You've always been the most considerate one in the family." I tried to keep my voice steady. "Mom, I've thought this through carefully. I want to suggest a solution. I'll hire a professional nanny to take care of the kids for the week. This person will be experienced, fully vetted, and I'll cover all the costs. That way, I can also join the vacation without anyone having to worry." There was a brief silence on the other end before Mom's voice returned, suddenly cold. "No, Jillian, I can't trust a stranger with my grandchildren. The kids need someone they're familiar with, and you're the best person for the job. This idea of yours is completely irresponsible." I felt like a bucket of cold water had been thrown over me. "Irresponsible?" I repeated, trying to keep calm. "I'm trying to find a solution that works for everyone, including me. Why is it such a problem for me to want to be part of your celebration?" Mom let out a heavy sigh, as though she were dealing with a child who just didn't understand. "Jillian, you know the family needs you. Ellie and Jessica have their own responsibilities, they have kids and families to take care of. But you only have yourself. And the kids adore you. This isn't a big deal. Just 1 week." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with another call. It was Ellie. Reluctantly I switched over, but before I could say a word her sharp voice cut through. "What are you doing? Mom just told me about the nanny idea. Are you trying to ruin everything? When did you become so selfish?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Ellie, I'm just trying to find a way for me to also enjoy the vacation. I've already contributed money, taken time off work, and now I just want to spend time with the family, like everyone else. What's so wrong about that?" "Don't you get it?" Ellie snapped. "We've planned everything already. We need you to watch the kids. This is the best solution for everyone. You always make things harder." Her words cut deep, like knives. "Harder?" I repeated, my voice trembling slightly. "Ellie, you and Jessica planned this without ever consulting me. You decided my role for me, and now you're calling me selfish?" Ellie lowered her voice but kept her accusatory tone. "We just thought you understood how important family is. If you keep acting like this, don't expect forgiveness from anyone." I put the phone down, my hands shaking. I had always given my all for them. But now, I was the one being labeled selfish. Tears streamed down my face, not from sadness, but from anger. For the first time in my life, I realized I could no longer bear this unfairness. After days of enduring criticism and manipulation from my family, I realized I couldn't keep going like this. The feeling of being exploited and disregarded had become too clear, and I knew that if I gave in this time, they would never change how they treated me. I decided to do something I never thought I could. Put myself first. That evening, I opened my laptop and started searching for a place far away, somewhere I could escape the pressure my family had been putting on me. After some time, I stopped on a small beach resort in Florida. The images of white sandy beaches, swaying palm trees, and gentle waves lapping at the shore brought me a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. Without hesitation, I booked a coach flight and a hotel room with a balcony overlooking the ocean. I didn't need a luxurious vacation. Just a place where I could breathe and rediscover myself. The next morning I packed my bags, bringing light clothing and my favorite book. Things I never had the time to enjoy while constantly fulfilling my family's endless demands. I didn't tell anyone, didn't explain, and didn't try to justify my decision. My phone kept buzzing with calls from Mom, Ellie, and even extended family members, but I ignored them. By now, I knew I didn't owe them any answers. When the plane landed in Florida, a wave of relief washed over me. Free from the criticism and expectations, I stepped out of the airport and took a deep breath of the salty sea air. The peaceful scenery and warm sunlight felt like a balm for my soul. The hotel was small but cozy, with a balcony offering a perfect view of the ocean. I spent my first afternoon sitting there, watching the sun paint the horizon in shades of red. Finally feeling free, for the first time in years. In the days that followed, I cherished every little moment I had previously denied myself. I walked along the beach, letting the warm sand slip between my toes. I spent hours at a small roadside cafe, reading my book and savoring every sip of coffee without rushing. I even signed up for a beach yoga session, something I had always thought I didn't have time. On my last evening in Florida, I sat on the balcony with a glass of wine, gazing at the sparkling stars overhead. I no longer felt guilty or worried about what my family might think. I realized that this was the life I had been missing, a life where I had the right to choose what made me happy. And this time I was certain. I would never go back to being anyone's convenient solution again. Diana added, "And your past?" While I was enjoying my peaceful days in Florida, my phone kept buzzing with messages and calls from my family. At first I ignored them, but curiosity eventually got the better of me. The first messages were from Ellie. "Jillian, where are you? We're standing outside your house with the kids, open the door." Then Jessica chimed in, "Jillian, the kids are asking for you. You can't just disappear like this." I read through the messages, imagining them standing outside my empty house, confused because I wasn't where they assumed I would be. Soon, the tone of the messages shifted to anger. Ellie wrote, "You seriously don't care about the family. How could you abandon the kids like this? You're unbelievably selfish." Jessica joined in. "We trusted you and you've betrayed the family. Mom has been crying all morning because of you." These messages only made me feel lighter. I had always borne the brunt of their unfair expectations. But this time, I didn't feel guilty. Instead, I felt like I was finally doing the right thing. The next day I received several missed calls from Mom. When I finally answered, her voice was full of anger. "Jillian, what have you done? The kids are confused. Ellie had to stay home with them instead of joining the vacation, and everyone is criticizing you. Don't you feel ashamed?" I took a deep breath, keeping my voice calm. "Mom, I've made it very clear I want to be part of your vacation, not stay behind as a babysitter. If no one respects my decision, that's not my fault." Mom paused, seemingly shocked by my words. Then her voice turned cold. "If you can't understand that family must come first, then you are not the daughter I raised." I stayed silent, not responding. Her words no longer had the power to hurt me as they once did. I knew I had changed. When I returned from my vacation, I still felt the lingering sense of freedom, but as soon as I stepped into my house, there was a loud, relentless knocking at the door. Ellie and Mom stormed in, their faces filled with anger. "You're so selfish, Jillian," Ellie yelled. "We had to take on all the responsibility because of you." Mom added, "The entire family is disappointed in you. You've ruined everything just because you refused to help." I looked at them, feeling an unusual calm. "You've always made decisions for me without asking for my input," I said. "You planned everything and treated me as a resource, not a person. If you're upset because I didn't agree, maybe it's time you reflect on how you've treated me all these years." Both Ellie and Mom fell silent, as though they had no response. For the first time in my life, I no longer felt bound by their expectations. No matter how much they called me selfish or irresponsible, I knew I had done the right thing for myself. I had learned that true family love isn't about unconditional sacrifice, but mutual respect. Something they had never given me. When I returned home from Florida, I knew I couldn't avoid facing my family. And as I had expected, they didn't take long to show up. Just a few hours after I arrived, there was a loud, relentless knocking at the door. I opened it to find Mom, Ellie and Jessica standing there, their faces filled with anger. Before I could say anything, Ellie stormed in, pointing a finger at me. "Jillian, what is wrong with you? Do you have any idea how much we've had to deal with because of you? You're so selfish." I closed the door, took a deep breath, and tried to stay calm. "Ellie, I'm not selfish," I replied, my voice steady but firm. I'm simply refusing to let myself be taken advantage of anymore. Jessica, who rarely showed much emotion, couldn't hide her frustration either. Taken advantage of? Jillian, you're the one who ruined Mom's vacation. You let the kids down, you let the whole family down, don't you feel ashamed? I felt my chest tighten with anger, but instead of letting it consume me, I kept my tone measured. Jessica, I didn't ruin the vacation. You all ruined it when you decided not to respect my opinions or my wishes. You assumed I would take care of the kids, use my money, and give up my time without even asking. Did anyone ever think about how I might feel? Mom cut in, her voice cold and sharp. Jillian, I can't believe you would behave this way. Family comes first, but it seems you've forgotten that. I raised you to think about others, but right now, I'm so disappointed in you. I looked at Mom, feeling my heart break, but for the first time, I didn't let guilt take over. Mom, I've spent my entire life thinking about others, sacrificing for this family. But that doesn't mean I don't have the right to think about myself. I've always done everything everyone asked of me, but no one has ever asked what I wanted. This isn't about family. It's about respect. Something you and everyone else have never given me. Ellie shook her head, her voice growing sharper. You're acting like we don't appreciate you, but this is family. You're supposed to help. This isn't about respect, it's about responsibility. I let out a soft laugh, not of satisfaction but of liberation. Ellie, helping is a choice, not a responsibility. And if this family truly valued me, you wouldn't force me to do things I don't agree with. The tension in the room grew thicker. But I didn't feel fear or regret. I had said everything I needed to say, and now I knew I had done the right thing. They could keep blaming me, keep being disappointed, but I had found the strength to stand up for myself. For the first time, I felt free. Jessica let out a heavy sigh, folding her arms across her chest, her eyes filled with disappointment as she looked at me. Jillian, don't you see? This is your family. We've always been there for each other, always helped one another, but now you're only thinking about yourself, and that's just selfish. I looked her straight in the eyes, my voice calm but firm. Jessica, you're right. Family is about helping each other. But that has to come from respect and understanding, not from obligation or being taken advantage of. I've helped everyone for so many years, but when I needed understanding, no one listened. This isn't a family that supports each other. This is a family that demands and imposes. In order to threaten the world? Anna told her sister. Ellie jumped in, her voice rising as if she couldn't accept what I was saying. You're acting like we've treated you poorly, but the truth is, you've always been willing to help, and now you're turning your back on everyone over this one small thing. You're just making yourself out to be the victim. Jillian. I frowned, feeling a surge of anger rise in my chest. Ellie, do you have any idea how many times I've sacrificed important things for myself to help everyone else? How many times I've canceled my own plans, given up my time and energy, just to support this family? And now, when I simply want to join this vacation as a normal member of the family, I get criticized and called selfish. Do you think that's fair? My mom stepped forward, placing her hand on the table, trying to regain control of the situation. Jillian, if you feel hurt, I'm sorry, but I still think you've overreacted. All I wanted was for this vacation to go smoothly, and now it's become a mess because of your stubbornness. I shook my head looking at her, and for the first time in my life, her words didn't make me waver. Mom, this vacation became a mess not because of me, but because no one asked for my input from the start. No one respected me or saw me as an equal. I've always tried to fulfill my role, but that doesn't mean I don't have the right to say no when something isn't fair. Ellie and Jessica started to speak again, but I raised my hand to stop them. I'm not going to argue anymore. I've made my feelings and my perspective clear. If you can't accept that, then that's your problem, not mine. The room fell silent, no one knowing what else to say. Mom, Ellie, and Jessica looked at me as if they couldn't recognize the sister and daughter they thought they knew. But I didn't waver. This wasn't just about standing up for myself. It was a declaration that I would no longer be someone they could easily take advantage of. I turned and walked toward the door, leaving them to sit with their own thoughts. This time I had chosen my own path. A path of freedom and self-respect. After the tense confrontation with Mom, Ellie and Jessica, I realized I no longer had any reason to hold on to a relationship that had always made me feel exploited. For the first time in my life, I decided to cut ties with my family. No explanations, no goodbyes. I left the family group chat, blocked the numbers that constantly sent me accusatory messages, and turned off social media. At first, the silence felt strange, like an unfamiliar void. But gradually I realized it wasn't loneliness. It was freedom. I began spending time exploring hobbies I had neglected for so long. One Saturday morning, instead of being busy in the kitchen preparing meals for the kids, I walked into a small bookstore near my home. I came across a sign that read, "Book Club, 4th Thursday of every month." Without much thought, I signed up. It was a small decision, but it opened a big door in my life. During those book club meetings, I not only got to share my favorite books, but also met new friends. People who didn't demand or expect anything from me. Beyond reading, I started planning trips I had never dared to consider before. I found a short getaway to Charleston, South Carolina, a place known for its historic homes and outdoor markets. I booked the tickets myself, created my own itinerary, and didn't need to ask for anyone's approval or wait for their agreement. That first trip made me realize one important thing: life doesn't have to revolve around pleasing others. Strolling through the cobblestone streets of Charleston in the mornings, I felt a true sense of peace. There were no criticisms, no pressure to meet anyone's expectations. I basked in the warm air, admired the oak trees draped with Spanish moss, and enjoyed a hot cup of coffee by the river. For the first time in years, I felt like my life truly belonged to me. When I returned from the trip, I continued expanding my world. I joined an evening painting class at a local art center, where I could unleash my creativity without fear of judgment. I spent time nurturing my small apartment, transforming it into a space that truly reflected me. A place no longer open to others taking up my time and energy. Gradually, I felt myself becoming a new person. I no longer felt guilty about saying no, or afraid to set boundaries. My family could continue calling me selfish, but I knew the truth. What I was doing wasn't selfish. It was self-respect, self-love, and choosing to live the life I deserved. As time passed, I gradually realized a simple yet powerful truth. Self-respect is not selfish. I used to confuse sacrificing for my family with abandoning myself. I thought love had to be expressed through submission and compliance. But now I understand that true love must begin with respecting myself. Living life on my own terms made the difference clear. Without being bound by unfair expectations, I felt more energized than ever. I no longer felt exhausted or resentful from doing things I didn't want to do. Instead, I spent my time nurturing my soul, reading my favorite books, exploring new places, and engaging in activities that brought me joy. Of course, my family didn't stop criticizing me. My mom continued leaving long, guilt-filled voicemails, Ellie kept posting sarcastic remarks on social media, and Jessica occasionally sent cold, pointed emails. But instead of feeling hurt or angry, I simply deleted them quietly. Their words no longer held the power they once did. I had learned how to protect myself. Not by confronting them or trying to make them understand, but by letting go of things that no longer aligned with my life. I don't know if my family will ever understand my decision, but that doesn't matter anymore. I've chosen my own path, the path that leads to peace and freedom, and I will never look back. The lesson from this story is the importance of setting boundaries and respecting yourself. In life, sacrifice and helping others are valuable, but they shouldn't come from obligation or exploitation. Saying no when necessary is not selfish, it's a way to protect your balance and personal happiness. We need to learn to prioritize ourselves, listen to our feelings, and let go of relationships that lack mutual respect. Self-respect is the foundation for building a peaceful and meaningful life. Share your thoughts on this story. Have you ever faced similar situations? Don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful stories about family, life, and valuable lessons. Let's spread positivity together.
The information is lost. I heard a stunning woman at the adjacent table mumble those things as I was unwinding in a cafe. I had just lost my job the day before for trying to hide an error that one of my coworkers had made. I therefore completely understood the fear and helplessness that accompany making a mistake. I volunteered to assist her as a former engineer, and I promptly recovered her lost data. My life completely changed as a result of the woman and I connecting over our extended conversation about my colleague Joseph. George is my name. I am 46 years old and currently employed with Reynolds Corporation as the assistant manager of the engineering division. It's been 16 years since I began this work at 30 after changing careers. Time goes by so quickly. My 3-year-old colleague Joseph Taylor has also begun to receive mentions for promotion. Since there is no seniority system in place at our organization, advancement through the ranks is based on ability rather than seniority. Joseph is younger than me, yet he's tremendously intelligent and successful in all he does. Our organization is in the food and beverage sector, and throughout the years, we have worked on a wide range of projects. To be honest, I work a lot of overtime, and occasionally I get unexpected calls after work to attend client meetings. It's an extremely demanding work because of all the overtime. Nevertheless, the salary is far higher than what most people my age make, which is why I've continued in this position. Despite spending a significant amount of money on my several interests on my days off, I still manage to save a good amount. I've been putting money down for my wedding day, but maybe I should give up on it now that I'm 46. It's all I've been thinking about lately. Something transpired that made me feel even more hopeless while I struggled with these ideas. My coworker Joseph approached me for guidance not long after I turned 46. George, could we have a quick chat? What's going on? You appear serious. Well, this time, I truly went wrong. The project in which errors are not permitted. At that point, Joseph started admitting he had made a grave error. In fact, we've been working on a project at Reynolds Corporation lately that is larger than anything we've ever worked on. In the engineering department, Joseph and I are mostly in charge of implementing the client's requests for system enhancements and revisions. On this large project, Joseph is the main lead, and I have been assigned to help him. Normally, I don't have to become too involved because it's Joseph's responsibility, but based on the look on his face, I may need to intervene more than I had anticipated. I realized there was a mistake after delivering it already. Why don't you inform the client and ask them to return it in such scenario? They most likely won't be overly angry. That's the main issue. By mistake, I ended up sending the system to a different client. I was unable to speak. It was astounding to me that Joseph had made such a simple error. He added that it was sent to a whole other company. The client had apparently been phoning Joseph nonstop and had already seen the new system intended for someone else. Pretending to be too busy, Joseph had been evading the calls, but they were also sending emails requesting an explanation. How am I going to proceed? I'm going to have my third child soon. If this causes me to lose my job, it will be all right. You shouldn't have to worry too much, in my opinion. They'll understand if you really apologize. However, the client is already enraged. Joseph never skips a work check, thus he rarely makes a thoughtless error like this. See, I'll assist you in saying sorry. For now, let's just keep our cool. Yes, you are correct. I shall take that action. Before expressing our regret to the client the following day, Joseph and I made the decision to inform our department manager of the circumstances. When we report this, what do you think the manager will say? He will undoubtedly be enraged. The manager unexpectedly approached Joseph and me as we were ready to go apologize first thing in the morning and said something startling. This time, you really did it. Pardon me? No, George, not you. Will you not offer an apology? The manager seemed to be taking his ire at me, The assistant, for some reason. I should have known at this point that this was a trap meant to drag me down. I apologize. I've heard you made a mistake when attempting to take credit for Joseph. Are you serious? What is the intended meaning of that? The manager claimed that someone had informed him that I was the one who committed the error, and that, in addition, I had purportedly pilfered Joseph's idea in order to claim credit for it and increase my own prospects of advancement. I could never do something like that. As his assistant, all I can say is that I didn't double-check anything. So you're attempting to blame Joseph for the error? There is miscommunication there. I knew that I was being put up as the antagonist, even though I had no understanding why this was occurring. Manager, who shared that information with you? It arrived this morning in an anonymous email. That is undoubtedly false. Why do you think that? Joseph tried to defend me right away after learning I was being blamed, but the manager said something that made us both froze. It doesn't matter who is at fault. This error cannot be excused. Both of you ought to get ready for the prospect of being fired. Death. Obviously. The cuss Georger has already complained to us. The manager left after saying that. How should I respond to being fired? How can I tell my family about it? Joseph, I couldn't help but remark, you can just say I made the mistake this time, as I saw Joseph's dejected expression and considered his family. How come? However, I'm not dating. It's okay, I have no one to protect. That's accurate. I should be able to handle getting fired because I'm single. However, if Joseph lost his work at this very moment, he would be in big danger. Since we started working for the same company, we have been coworkers, therefore I am aware of his excellent character. I reasoned that it would be preferable for me to accept responsibility and let Joseph to continue working. Many thanks. I have one to give you. I'll always be grateful for what you've done for me. It's all right. In any case, I've been itching to try out other types of work. You're really a nice guy. I went straight to the manager after that and gave him the rundown. I informed him that Joseph had nothing to do with anything, and that I was the one who was at fault. I'm really sorry. So, you were attempting to get out of this by lying? Huh. I'm unable to forgive that. I really apologize. I'm just able to apologize. I can't conceive of a more noble course of action if I'm being fired for standing up for my buddy Joseph, so I'm okay with nearly certain dismissal. But then I was confronted with a hard reality. You know, you're simply too great of a guy. What's making you laugh? The manager reprimanded me, and as soon as I got back to my station, Joseph approached me with a chuckle before dropping a bombshell. Do you honestly believe I would make such a mistake? I sent the client the incorrect system on purpose. What? By what do you mean? Describe yourself. Remember when we spoke about a promotion? It seemed to be between you and me. I was shocked to learn that Joseph had plotted to undermine me in order to secure his promotion. It was okay if I took the fall for him. But he meant to continue delivering false reports about me to the management in secret if things didn't work out. Why would you act in such a way? You've been my ally forever. And just like that, Joseph, someone I considered to be a personal friend and comrade, betrayed me. The manager wouldn't listen to me when I tried to explain the matter to him. There's no point in coming in Georgiero. I'm fired, he informed me. With a heavy heart, I packed up my belongings and left for home that day. I awoke the following day in the afternoon. There would be no room for me at work, even if I got there. Nobody had called in from the office by now. Rather, the manager sent me an official email terminating my employment. Overwhelmed by an unfathomable sensation, I discovered that I was walking towards a neighboring cafe. I settled into a table outside and ordered a sandwich and coffee. I sipped the coffee, but I was unable to get myself to finish the sandwich. I had no hunger, and I never anticipated to be betrayed by someone I trusted. What am I going to do now? A woman seated next to me whispered something quietly while I was buried in contemplation. My data is gone. I turned to see an incredibly attractive woman seated there. The woman was glancing at her phone, obviously nervous, trying to figure out what to do. I used to be an engineer, so I think I can help restore it. Are you serious? Would you kindly have a look? Obviously. Fixing this should be simple. And with that, I was assisting the helpless woman. I really appreciate it. I had an appointment with a client soon, so I was really freaking out. No issue. I'm happy I was of assistance. A business meeting? Indeed. Jennifer is my name. My place of employment is Florence Corporation. Jennifer gave me her business card as she was saying that. Jennifer's father happens to be the CEO of the company where she works. Like me, she's 40 years old and unmarried. The daughter of a CEO. It makes sense that you have such refined manners. It is embarrassing. Don't say that, please. What is your name, by the way? My name is George. In actuality, I lost my job yesterday. Jennifer's surprised eyes grew wide. I couldn't help myself, even though I shouldn't have discussed it with a complete stranger. Burned? Why not? To put it simply, I was betrayed by a colleague I was close to. That is terrible. Well, I have to leave now. Next time, please tell me more. Jennifer quickly left the cafe after shutting her laptop. I stayed home all week, spending my days by myself. I knew I ought to be looking for work, but I was too tired. I'd assumed I'd live off my funds for the time being while I took some time to heal both physically and mentally. I was kicking back in bed when I received a call from an unknown number. Are you still here? The woman you met at the cafe is Jennifer. Jennifer, what's going on? Actually, there's something I'd really like to talk to you about. I had given Jennifer my phone when she gave me her business card, but I never thought she would be the one to get in touch. We set up a meeting in the same cafe where we first spoke because she indicated she would rather speak with someone in person than over the phone. Sorry for calling you out of the blue like this. No issue. How may I help you today? Well, if you haven't found a new job yet, would you consider working for us? I was shocked to learn that Jennifer wanted to hire me since her company needed engineers. I'd be hired immediately if I agreed, since her father, the CEO, had already given her the go-ahead. But I've never even met your father. When I told him about how you helped me, he said yes immediately. After giving it some thinking, I ultimately chose to accept Jennifer's offer. It was 2 months later. I continued to be busy, and I had almost forgotten about the episode involving Joseph. But then I got a call from Joseph out of the blue. Hey, a long time has passed. How are you doing? I'm doing quite well. Why are you phoning me? I just wanted to see how you were doing. Have you started a new job yet? Joseph had obviously called out of spite. Sorry to disappoint you, but I found a new job pretty quickly and have already started working. Oh, I see. Where do you currently work? At Florence Corporation. You know it well, right? Joseph remained silent. It made sense that he appeared to be at a loss for words. Joseph had often expressed his desire to work for Florence Corporation. Furthermore, he works for Reynolds Corporation, which is its parent firm. You're saying that Florence Corporation hired you? Give up tinkering around. That is accurate. There's going to be a workplace get-together shortly, right? There, I'm confident we'll cross paths. Be truthful. Are you not just bluffing as well? It seems that he believed me to be lying about my employment with the main corporation. After persistently disputing my statements, Joseph finally hung up on me. The meeting between the parent business and the subsidiary was held 2 weeks later. Joseph approached me with a smug smile as soon as I got there. You know, this place is off limits to outsiders. Oh, I see. Do you work as staff for events? What topic are you discussing? I informed you that Florence Corporation is where I work. Please, quit telling falsehoods. It's awkward. Josephs seemed to believe that I was assuming the role of event staff, when in reality, I was not. I realized that further denying it would not make him reconsider at this point. As I was contemplating that, I noticed Jennifer off in the distance. Is that Jennifer? IRL. She is even more gorgeous. George, you've arrived already. How come? Jennifer is someone I know. It was obvious that Joseph was anxious to see the CEO's daughter speaking to me. At last, he began to understand that I was speaking the truth regarding my employment at Florence Corporation. I told you that Florence Corporation is where I work. Not at all. You truly, who is this person, George? After Jennifer gave us a perplexed look, I introduced Joseph by saying, he's the colleague who framed me and got me fired. You're the one. I see now. What are you discussing? Jennifer, who was fully aware of my termination, gave Joseph a disdainful glance. Joseph began to perspire profusely as he realized the woman he admired was aware of his transgressions. Everything you did, I know exactly what you did. My father has already been informed, and we are currently talking on how to handle it. I'm not sure what you're discussing. You are well aware of what you did to George. You won't get away with it from us. It appears that Reynolds Corporation carried undertaken an internal inquiry without informing me. They were investigating who put me up and why I was fired so abruptly. We've heard from several witnesses that you were envious of George. Who made that statement? I can't tell you that, but everyone will know what you really did very soon. Jennifer turned and walked away, her hair waving, after saying those words. I was unaware that an inquiry of this kind was underway. It's also unlikely that Joseph ever thought his misconduct would come to light. What should I do in the event that they discover my actions? They refer to this as karma. I believe I'll just observe from a distance as things unfolds. Please, come to my aid. Are we pals? I take it. After dropping Joseph off there, I followed Jennifer throughout the rest of the party. Joseph's eyes were expressionless. The reports of his wrongdoings had already begun to circulate, so even though some people were worried, nobody felt compelled to confront him. It was undoubtedly assumed by everybody that it would be the final time they saw him. And sure enough, Joseph got his notice of termination a few days after the party. It seems that they discovered that someone had overheard my talk with Joseph after questioning every employee. It was one of those quick-witted office gossips who was willing to testify. What was even more intriguing was that she had filmed a portion of our talk. Soon afterward, I learned through rumors what had happened to Joseph. Joseph evidently couldn't bring himself to notify his family that he'd been sacked. He'd dress up every day as though he was going to work, but all he did was kill time in the park until he got home in the evening. However, his wife quickly learned that he had been spotted in the park by a neighbor. Joseph acknowledged being fired when his wife confronted him, but he gave no explanation for the dismissal. She therefore learned the complete tale of how Joseph had set me up and gotten me dismissed when she got in touch with Reynolds Corporation. Of course, she was incensed. It was inexcusable for a man who was going to have his third kid to commit such a heinous act. With those remarks, she stormed out of the house. In addition to receiving divorce papers, Joseph is currently receiving criticism from his family members. His wife has engaged an attorney, so even though he hasn't signed the paperwork yet, it appears like the divorce will soon be finalized. Had he not chosen such a cowardly path, he may have received a promotion and enjoyed a happy life with his family. That's what I found myself thinking as I thought back on my experiences with Joseph. I was elevated to the position of head of the engineering department at Lawrence Corporation after 5 years of employment. It looks like my work was acknowledged. It turns out that Jennifer wasn't partial to me, despite my initial suspicions. My coworkers were the ones who suggested me for the role, stating that I would be a good fit. I'm positive that my sincerity with everyone I've dealt with has contributed to the way things have worked out. Well done. I'm overjoyed for you. Many thanks. All of it is due to you, Jennifer. It's just that your ability was acknowledged. We're having a celebration at a fancy restaurant tonight to honor my promotion to department head. Additionally, we're using this opportunity to discuss our future goals for our life. Actually, 3 years ago, Jennifer and I tied the knot. Since being married, we've both put in a lot of work and helped one another out. We chose to live as a couple since we realized that raising children at our age would be challenging. Despite our continued enjoyment of our jobs, we now find ourselves in a situation where we have more money than we know what to do with. So we agreed to talk about how to use it. I'd really like to take a trip, perhaps even across the globe. That sounds fantastic. When can we take a longer break? Let's go. Really? Are you for real? Yes, indeed. Jennifer smiled broadly at the idea of seeing the world. I never thought I would be fortunate enough to have a woman as amazing as mine. Though I was in terrible sorrow when Joseph betrayed me, that betrayal had the exact opposite effect on my life. Thus, in a way, I suppose I should be grateful to Joseph. As I got ready to go with the younger department head, Jason, on a $30 million international business venture, he urged me to just wait outside. However, it was unbearably hot outside. It was ridiculous to expect me to wait in this heat for an extended period of time without knowing when the meeting would end. I could get sunstroke or heat stroke, at worst. However, Jason completely ignored me and stated that it was a department head's directive before entering the client's office by himself. 5 hours later, things were different when he saw me and our clients still waiting outside, exactly as he requested. Do you even know who he is? He. Yes, I am 40 years old, and under Jason's direction, my genuine identity is Kevin. I work for a specific company. I joined this organization because of particular reasons, but what I saw in the department to which I was assigned was startling. Are you the Kevin that will be employed in our department? The department head is me, Jason. You appear to be quite ineffective. Please watch out not to bring me down. 10 years younger than me, Jason, the department leader, made me feel inferior right away on my first day. I couldn't come up with a rationale, but it felt like he was judging me based only on how I looked. It was completely unjust. As per the accounts of fellow workers, Jason received an extraordinary promotion at the tender age of 30. It is said that his father, Mr. Thompson, the company's president, shoved him. His father was obviously proud of his son, who had been preparing to take over the company since he graduated from Tokyo University. The end result was that Jason had become unbearably conceited after deftly abusing his father's position of authority. He treated the staff like mere pawns, acting as though he had ascended to the top solely by his own merit. Stop dawdling and get a move on. The workers beneath him reluctantly obeyed his directions, not daring to challenge his authority. With a sinking heart, I observed this sight and wondered if I would wind up the same way. Jason started harassing me, as was to be anticipated. He slapped the documents down on my desk and said, "Handle these documents for me," as I was using my computer. My face twitched uncontrollably as I looked up to see Jason grinning and watching my response. No one else ever behaved just as I had predicted so consistently. He waved his hand dismissively and went back to his desk. "You're older than me, but you're still a rookie, so think of this as a learning experience," he added. I picked up the documents and sighed with frustration. I was shocked to see they were obviously intended for Jason when I went through them. That he would so blatantly shift his workload on a subordinate horrified me beyond belief. I saw him staring at his computer screen while seated at his desk as I glanced over at him once more. But I didn't think anything work-related was shown on the screen. I let out another sigh at the thought. There would be overtime because I had these paperwork to finish in addition to my own duties. I was caught in the crossfire, even though my original objective was to leave on time. Jason was undoubtedly aware that I wouldn't be able to handle these materials as a novice. Still, he gave them to me, probably just to complicate matters. He seemed to be suggesting, ask other supervisors to figure it out. His approach to staff supervision was incredibly unsuitable and gave me a headache. Jason's strange behavior continued even after I asked other supervisors for assistance to finish the documentation. I'd been with the company for about 3 months when he stated, "Just stand there and watch." When Jason and I went on a sales visit to a client one day, he put pressure on me to keep quiet and not to get involved. Reluctantly, I nodded in agreement. It seemed best, as a novice, to offer no explanations. I might as well use this as an opportunity to study Jason's sales strategies at this point. The client said, "Sorry about the heat in here. The air conditioner broke down, but please help yourselves to some chilled tea," as soon as we got to their office. The room we were shown had a malfunctioning air conditioner, which resulted in an uncomfortable temperature and perspiration dripping across our foreheads. It's early July and the outside temperature is 86 degrees Fahrenheit. There was a tiny bit of relief when the windows were opened, but not quite enough to notice. Instinctively, I reached inside my suit for a handkerchief to dab at the perspiration. Jason seemed completely defeated by the heat next to me. He's undoubtedly having trouble because our company's office is always quite air-conditioned. I couldn't help but laugh a little at his distress. Accepting the chilly tea our host offered, I said, "Let's take advantage of their hospitality, Jason. You should have some too," and urged Jason to follow suit. Jason gave me a stern look as he jerked back to reality, obviously irritated that I had provoked him. There's no need to be so angry. Following that quick chat, we got down to business, and Jason started negotiating with the client. Jason was often sloppy with his job, but during the discussions he went into business mode. I couldn't help but wish he would treat us employees with the same professionalism he was displaying today as I sat through the meeting in the oppressive heat. The tea I'd been offered was gone by the time the meeting was over. Damn, it's hot. As we were heading back to the office after the negotiations, Jason abruptly announced he was sick of the heat and that he was going to a neighboring cafe for solace. I went inside after him. "Order an iced coffee for me, will you?" "Yes," I answered. So I sat down across from Jason, who had taken his seat quite dramatically, and he told me to get the iced coffees. I phoned the waiter and asked for 2 iced coffees, as per his instructions. I couldn't help but shrug. Jason had become the more confident version of himself that I knew better. It's quite hot outside. While we're at it, should we grab lunch? I proposed, looking at the cafe's clock and realizing it was now past noon. Jason smiled mischievously, as if struck by a startling thought. "You're paying, of course." "Obviously." "What are your preferences?" I was not fazed, so I answered calmly. Jason became grumpy, acting as though he thought I would be irritated. Unfortunately for him, I don't get worked up over something like this. In a stern voice, he said, "I'll have the omelette rice." I then gave the waiter a ring and placed an order for spaghetti and omelette rice for him. I ordered the pasta, by the way. We waited for a while without any talk, but I could understand why Jason was in such a nasty mood the entire time. It's not very enticing to have lunch with someone you don't particularly like. However, I couldn't help but giggle to myself about how strange Jason's order of omelette rice was. But a month later, Jason was still harassing people, and something altogether else had happened. A $30 million international agreement. Oh, Jason had stumbled into a much bigger business potential than he had ever seen before. Mr. Thompson had undoubtedly paved the way for his son's future success. Jason would certainly ascend even higher if this deal went through. I knew I would be in the spotlight too, as I was supposed to be going with him, but I knew Jason would not be happy about it. I prepared myself, thinking he would try to undermine me. Then came the day of the international transaction. The negotiations were scheduled to take place in the client's domestic branch, even though the deal was overseas. In an effort to arrive at the client's office 5 minutes prior to the scheduled meeting, Jason and I left early and walked there. The sun was beating down on us nonstop as we walked, scorching our flesh. The sun had been shining since the morning, and the sky was clear and devoid of clouds. The road ahead shimmered with mirages. We made it to the client's office without any problems, me using a handkerchief to dab at the perspiration on my brow. But then I heard Jason laugh aloud, very loudly, very quickly. "What's so funny?" I questioned, at first fearing he was affected by the heat. However, it didn't seem to be the case. With a menacing grin on his face, Jason ordered, "Old man, wait outside," even though he was perspiring. How come? I was momentarily unable to process what he had just said. Was he really advising me to sit here by myself in this intense heat? I'm sure that would be too risky even for me. There was a significant chance of sunstroke or heat stroke. "Are you serious, Jason? With this level of heat, staying outside is risky." I objected. "If you start feeling faint, just find somewhere else to hide. You're not going inside, though. On my own, I'm going to close this $30 million deal. You shouldn't be interfering with my promising future." Jason had told me to go with him, but it was obvious that he wanted me to stay out of the bargaining and take all the credit. What happened to me out here didn't matter to him. "Your department chief has given you this directive directly. Just wait here, without moving. Don't worry, I'll close this deal successfully," he stated dismissively as he entered the building, waving his hand. I was left behind and experienced conflicting feelings, but I chose to wait in some shade. I found a tree nearby and took a seat in its shade. Thank goodness I had taken a thermos of ice water in case something similar occurred. As I took a drink, it brought to mind the delectable tea I had while recently visiting another client of Jason's whose air conditioner had malfunctioned. I've always had a thermos with me ever since. I should be able to prevent heat stroke with this. I just needed to wait for Jason now. I finally saw Jason and the customer leave the building after roughly 5 hours, at which point I got up. I'm grateful. "It's really a dream come true," exclaimed Jason, obviously happy with how the talks turned out. I approached them. "I've been waiting for you, Jason," I replied. "You actually stayed out here the whole time?" With obvious shock, Jason inquired. The client turned to face me after noticing me as well. He expressed complete shock on his face the instant he saw me. R. Edward was the name tag on him. "Yes, I have spent nearly 5 hours waiting here." "How went the $30 million deal then?" I inquired. "Obviously. I performed my talents flawlessly," Jason bragged, his chest swelling with arrogance. But Edward was getting paler by the moment as he watched Jason and me converse. Then, with an angry expression on his face, he grabbed Jason by the shoulder and asked, "Do you even know who this man is?" "Ha!" Jason scowled, completely perplexed by Edward's abrupt reaction. "Whom?" "He is simply one of my subordinates and a worker for our organization. But he's totally worthless, so I advised him to stay outside rather than bring him to the talks." Jason laughed heartily as he recalled the incident. But Edward's face was colorless as he glanced at him. You have no idea what you've done, do you?" In desperation, Edward murmured and grasped his head. "What actions of mine do you mean? What is happening?" Confused by Edward's response, Jason inquired. I was laughing so hard at what I was seeing that I was having trouble controlling myself. Laughing uncontrollably, I decided it was time to tell the truth. "Actually, Jason, this isn't the first time I've met Edward." "What?" "Not at all. Are you only inventing this?" Jason scoffed and brushed off my statements like they were a practical joke. Not surprisingly, because I had only had 4 months to join the company and had no sales experience, he thought my narrative was ludicrous. "It's enough, this absurdity. I will not put up with this man being disrespected any longer. He will lead our organization as president in the future." Edward's voice broke through the tension with a boom. "What? The client company's future president?" Jason stumbled and looked at me in disbelief. I caught his stare, grinned, and made the decision to elaborate. I'm sorry I didn't reveal my identify. The fact is that I joined your company in order to gather experience before I became the next president and left my father's. Jason, this is your father's company. Looking up at the building where the negotiations had just taken place, Jason's eyes grew wide with surprise. It was bigger than Jason's company, for sure, but that wasn't the main thing. Yes, that is true. I will be there shortly. However, I'm delighted I invested the time to learn more about the business sector, particularly now that I know someone who works with our clients is just like you. Jason, I went on. Jason went pale as the gravity of what I'd spoken dawned on him. Considering how he had treated me badly and purposefully left me out of today's negotiations, it seemed only fitting. I firmly said, "Of course, I will report your behavior to my father." "Hold on. I would never have done this if I had known you were going to be the client company's president." Jason begged fervently. "Jason, crying about it won't make anything better. Additionally, I have a witness. This Edward has heard it all." I made a point. At those words, Jason came back to reality and shot a terrified glare at Edward. Edward, who was obviously furious, agreed with my explanation with a nod before glaring sharply at Jason. Edward serves as a close counselor to my father as well, and he will remain so in the event that I win the presidency. Therefore, I do not intend to let any troublemakers join the organization. If a corporation hires someone like you, I would rather sever my connection with them. Hold on. I mean, I'm an amazing negotiator, right? Did I close this $30 million deal? I can't just be let go by you. It was evident how desperate Jason was. No matter how good a negotiator you are, no one will follow someone who views their staff as pawns to be used as stepping stones up the ladder. Edward, what are your thoughts? I turned to him and asked what he thought. Edward nodded once again, confirming my view in full. Then he said something. The agreement we recently reached is void. I cannot sign a contract with someone who denigrates our company's future president, regardless of your level of talent. Since the contract had not yet been signed and was awaiting Mr. Anderson, the current president's approval, Edward's quick thinking saved the day. Jason may have caused more issues by using the contract as leverage if it had been signed. Being able to avoid that situation was a relief. You might as well depart right now as the contract hasn't been signed yet. With that, Edward struck the decisive blow. Not at all. Jason was so overcome with grief that his voice was hardly audible. Edward then beckoned me inside the structure, and I couldn't help but make one last remark to Jason as I passed him. Jason, it's quite unfortunate. Our future may have been bright if we had collaborated. Our businesses could have prospered considerably more, both of them. But it's obvious that you and I are fundamentally different after giving it some more thought. I stopped next to Jason and uttered those words. I understood then that there was a big difference between the two of us. I was out in the world getting actual experience, while you stayed sheltered at your father's firm doing as you liked, even though we were both destined to inherit our parents' businesses. Even if you may brag about your abilities, you have ultimately simply benefited from your father's achievements. I then grinned triumphantly, brushed him aside, and led Edward inside the building. Jason walked away stunned, fell to the floor, and just sat there. Jason lowered his shoulders and slowly walked out of the business after an employee told him to move aside when they checked on him later. He felt defeated. Was that really what he did to you? We ought to speak with him about it. Honestly, there's no reason to bother. As I sat on the sofa in a cool, air-conditioned meeting room, telling Edward what had happened, I said, "Please don't worry about it." When Edward found out about Jason's behavior, he became furious and showed signs of having not seen me since I had informed him that I would be working for experience at another company. After spending 5 hours in the sweltering sun earlier, his almost touching rage on my behalf let me let go of everything Jason had done to me. Edward made a special effort to look after me. I was given every cooling gadget the corporation owned, even though his anxiety seemed a little exaggerated. I could see why he was upset. His concern was somewhat warranted because I wouldn't have even carried a cooled thermos before now. I was really surprised when he pulled out a 2-liter bottle of water, thinking I hadn't had enough to drink. I truly am all right, I assure you. I spent my time in the shade under a tree that the corporation had planted. I could have spent the entire day outside in the scorching sun if that tree hadn't been there. I gave my explanation, telling Edward not to worry. In addition, the thermos I had brought with me was another thing that kept me alive. Really, Kevin, did you have a thermos with you? Typically, you're the kind who just grabs anything from the vending machine. That's the reason I'm happy I gained some practical experience. After having that ice-cold tea at the client's office, I developed the habit. I answered. It was so refreshing that I'll never forget it. It was hot in the room where the air conditioner had malfunctioned, but I learned something priceless from it. I was able to stay cool in the shade during the heat wave because of that cold drink, and I discovered that there are lessons to be learned from any unexpected circumstance. Edward gave me a perplexed look, not sure what to make of it all, while I grinned at the idea. In the end, though, he was glad that the situation had not become more serious. Jason did not lose any time in informing his father, Mr. Thompson, about the incident when he returned to his firm. But Jason wasn't prepared for the answer he got. How come? Am I getting demoted? When Jason was told he would be demoted with immediate effect, his amazement was evident. Kevin's resignation letter and his resignation, effective immediately, were delivered by someone acting on his behalf earlier today. Mr. Thompson fixed Jason with a serious look and added, "It turns out he's the son of the president of one of our major clients and the future president himself." Jason flinched away from his father's stern look as Mr. Thompson went on. "They want us to void the overseas arrangement and demote you in exchange for ignoring the multiple instances of abuse you've inflicted onto Kevin." I consented, vowing to keep a cordial connection with their business and to treat this issue seriously despite the fact that you are my son. However, you cannot stop being demoted. However, you're my dad. Why aren't you supporting me? Jason objected. Our company will fail if I did not take this move. Is that your desired outcome? Mr. Thompson asked his son, raising his voice. Jason stopped talking, at last realizing how serious things were. Jason's face showed that Mr. Thompson was beginning to realize something. You should realize by now that their company, with its international branches, holds a stronger position than ours, he said once more. You had better comply if you don't want to find yourself homeless. I guess I thought too highly of you. Speaking those last remarks, Mr. Thompson was filled with tremendous disappointment. He had no idea that his son had been abusing his position of authority. Only then did Jason acknowledge the seriousness of his errors, and as a result, his demotion was confirmed. After a year, Jason was back to his old job as a regular employee and making a fresh start. He no longer treated his staff like mere pawns, and he had lost his arrogance. Rather, he was now putting a lot of effort into his tasks. His objective was to eventually return to his role as department head, and he was progressively reestablishing confidence with the staff as well as his father, Mr. Thompson. Regarding myself, I was able to assume the role of president at my father's business. It took a lot of effort to gain my father's approval because he was a severe man. But I did, at last, a year after going back to work for the corporation. My entire endeavor, including the time I spent learning in a different organization, was not in vain. Edward, from today onward, I'll be counting on you as my advisor, I replied. Obviously. You can rely on me to treat you the same way I treated your father, Edward answered with assurance. His confident tone made me laugh uncontrollably, but it was also comforting. I thought I could accomplish things with him at my side that I couldn't do on my own. Actually, a year ago, Edward had taken the initiative and gone to see Mr. Thompson on my behalf in order to handle my resignation. Edward offered to act as my spokesman after I'd revealed all of Jason's transgressions. Few people possess the qualities of Edward: loyalty, competence, and total dedication. He had been my father's trusted advisor for many years, and he was loyal to me too. Though they never discussed it, it seemed like Edward was quite appreciative of my father for having assisted him in the past. I had more essential things to focus on, so I didn't push for further information. I had assumed official presidential duties as of today, and I had to focus on them. Having gained experience and having a capable staff by my side, I was driven to take the company to new heights. Robert, as of this month, you are dismissed. You were so close to retiring, so it's unfortunate, isn't it? I accepted the slip of paper from manager Sarah, completely bewildered. The document bore the president's seal firmly stamped on it and read dismissal notice in huge letters. She started bragging, "Why?" when I asked her why. Naturally, due to your complete incompetence. After consulting with the president about the previous occurrences and your actions, even though he appeared a little unhappy, he decided to fire you. I hung my head in amazement as I glanced at the notice of dismissal. "I'm finally relieved to get rid of a useless person like you," she said. "Starting today, I've made arrangements for you to use the remaining vacation days, so get your belongings and head out. The company is ruined by incompetence." I started to release all the tensions I had been holding inside at that very moment. Comprehensive. Then, I'm going to leave. Thank you for the lesson, and bye for now. I then started packing my belongings rapidly in front of manager Sarah. I promised to get revenge in private when I got home. Robert Johnson, I'm 62 years old. I'm currently employed at Fine Beverage Co., a small beverage firm, as a section chief in the sales department. I've been apathetic toward most things since I was a little child, cruising through life without enthusiasm. On the suggestion of my parents, I attended lessons at a nearby university during my school years and then returned home for 4 years without becoming involved in any clubs. I didn't have a specific position in mind when I started my job search, so I applied to any company that attracted my attention and eventually heard from one of them with a job offer. I'm still employed at Fine Beverage Co., which was that company. I was placed in the sales department when I first joined the company after graduating from college, where I picked up skills from my more experienced colleagues. I was first very eager to learn the job and got dissatisfied with it every day because it involved a lot of boring work. But as I grew accustomed to the work, I felt a spark that I had never felt before, and I started to take an active part in my tasks. I earned my colleagues' trust by going out of my way to visit numerous businesses and meticulously finishing administrative work. As a result, I continuously ranked at the top of my sales performance. When I realized that this spark was really a sense of contentment, I became incredibly engaged in my profession and eagerly anticipated arriving at the office each morning, savoring every moment. I finally gained the respect of my peers and juniors as a talented worker as I kept up my good work, and I received praise from my bosses. I married a woman I worked with a few years later, and the following year our son David was born. I had gone from being apathetic toward most things to being able to find happiness and fulfillment at work and at home. I made the decision to put in a lot of effort to pay Fine Beverage Co. back for everything it had done for me, as I felt that the company was the reason I was happy. After many years, I am finally in charge of the sales department as section chief, working with my superiors and taking pleasure in my work. My love of work has inspired my son David, who has developed into a respectable adult and started his own business. Even after Johnson Holdings, a big beverage maker and David's competitor, completely acquired Fine Beverage Co. and turned it into a subsidiary, I persisted in my efforts, determined to keep up with David. I set daily goals for myself, intending to make the most of my work till retirement. A new manager was brought in from another company a few days after the manager of the sales department retired. Sarah Brown was her name, and she was regarded as a very good and competent woman. She was stunning, but she had a reputation for being severe at work. If someone made even the smallest error, she would scream at them. Her previous employer referred to her as the Demon Lady Manager, so we listened to her greeting with trepidation. Everyone started working after her introduction and the conclusion of the morning meeting. I started getting concerned as Manager Sarah abruptly stopped me as I was getting ready for my sales rounds. "I take it you're Robert, the head of the section. It's good to meet you." She surprised me by speaking to me nicely, and I reciprocated with a "nice to meet you too," feeling a little relieved. "Please inquire if you need anything at all." But her smile faded soon, and she furrowed her brows in displeasure. "What, from you?" "Not at all. Robert, I wouldn't bother seeking advice from an expert like you. And at your age, still serving as section chief. You have to be incredibly inept. Act less haughty and powerful." Manager Sarah seemed irritated and turned back to her desk after that. When I first met her, I was astounded by her contempt. But I got myself together fast, wrapped up my sales preparations, and left, attempting to put the situation behind me. Manager Sarah was working as if nothing had happened when I came back to the office in the afternoon. She did not even give me a sidelong glance. Although I was happy that I hadn't offended her, it appeared that she had been observing me in private. Manager Sarah started to look down on me every time she saw me, even though I was just going about my business as usual after that. "Do your job properly, old man," she would often say, and if I took even a brief break, she would yell at me, "Don't slack off." Her yells reverberated through the sales department every day, and she handled other staff members in the same manner. I was clutching my head in my hands, scared for the sales department's future, because the Demon Lady Manager had woken up early. After a few days, Manager Sarah continued to torment and exacerbated herself. She would make fun of my completed documents and remark, "What an outdated style." Alternatively, she would return them and declare, "I don't like your taste," if she was in a foul mood. Do it again. Nevertheless, I refused to give up on Manager Sarah. I put all of my attention into my task and made the most of my years of expertise. I demonstrated my expertise by meeting her requests and avoiding any little errors, which left her unable to provide directions and clearly unhappy. After a few more days, I was working as usual when Manager Sarah gave me an urgent assignment out of the blue. It appeared like a different employee was working on it, but she chose to give it to me since she couldn't finish it in time. "The deadline is tomorrow, so make sure it's finished by then," she urged, her frustration evident in her tone. "You're supposedly capable, despite your appearances, so you can do it, right?" I was annoyed by her patronizing tone, but I nodded. I answered, "Sure," giving the urgent assignment top priority. I finished the paperwork the following day and sent it straight to Manager Sarah. With a sense of relief, I went back to my other tasks after the paperwork were authorized. When I got at work the following morning as usual, Manager Sarah, who was already there, came storming toward me, her countenance enraged. She thrust the paperwork in front of me, holding the ones I turned in yesterday. "Look," she said, her voice brimming with rage. "What are the documents that you created yesterday? Full of errors." The client became irate and demanded, "What are you doing?" when I emailed them to them. Manager Sarah apparently forwarded the paperwork to the client right away after I finished them. However, she got reprimanded early this morning after receiving a call pointing out the mistakes. Despite being shook, I looked over the paper she threw at me. As expected, there were sections where the client's expectations were not fulfilled, and the text and graphs were difficult to understand. I was not the first employee to work on those portions, though. Someone else handled them. This input should ideally go to that employee, yet Manager Sarah reprimands harshly and arbitrarily. I made the decision to accept responsibility now and bring up the problems later. I braced myself and gave Manager Sarah a heartfelt apology. She immediately began to smirk and barraged him with insults. You're unable of even managing this basic task? You truly lack competence. Pointless. Redo it by today at 12 o'clock. I'll put you next to the window if you aggravate me once more. I grumbled to myself when I heard Manager Sarah's remarks. Why must I receive such a severe reprimand? Manager Sarah had, after all, checked and approved the final documents. Is it not absurd that she is blaming me alone since she was also blind to the errors? I was able to handle the circumstance even though I suppressed my annoyance to keep from expressing it. Manager Sarah was relieved and in a better mood when she got back to her desk. I let out a long breath and quickly went to work recreating the documents. I completed the documents just before noon and went on to the other things I had already set aside, intending to have them verified thoroughly this time. I was stranded in the department for several days, putting in late hours, which led to tiredness and eventually decreased productivity. But I persisted, and a few days later, I relieved myself by finishing the last few assignments. I thought, I haven't been on a sales round in a while, and following the morning meeting I got ready. Manager Sarah abruptly appeared in front of me and started holding a piece of paper as I was ready to leave the department. Robert, you're fired, she sternly declared. Working as of this month. You were so close to retiring, so it's unfortunate, isn't it? I accepted the slip of paper from Manager Sarah, completely bewildered. The document bore the president's seal firmly stamped on it and read dismissal notice in huge letters. The office was in disarray, and the nearby employees who had heard could not conceal their shock either. Why am I being fired? Perplexed, I asked. Her boasting started. Why? Of course, because you're completely incompetent. I informed the president about the recent occurrences and your actions. Though he did so regretfully, he chose to fire you. She clarified that she had enraged the client by alerting the president to the errors in the paperwork I had turned in. She also said that I had been unmotivated and that I had become weary from working overtime, which had decreased my efficiency. The president took her word for it and chose to terminate me after considering her arguments. Despite my 40 years of committed service and achievements to the company, he trusted Manager Sarah, who was newly appointed, more than me. I hung my head in amazement as I glanced at the notice of dismissal. Manager Sarah persisted in taunting me, as if she found my sadness funny. Getting rid of someone as useless as you makes me feel completely relieved. Pack up and head out. I made arrangements for you to use the remaining vacation days beginning today. Incompetence destroys the business, she remarked, dismissively sweeping her hand as though chasing an insect away. That was when all the frustrations I'd been stuffing down started to boil. Trying not to lose my cool, I took the dismissal in stride. I appreciate the learning experience, I replied. I'll head out right away. Farewell. I immediately began collecting my belongings in front of Manager Sarah after that. When I was ready, I hurried out of the sales office and bid farewell to the department staff. She continued to smile smugly the entire time, but I ignored her as I walked out of the business. I made a secret vow to do retribution when I returned home. It had been 2 weeks since I was let go by the company. I had been attempting to recover from all the stress of work by taking it easy at home. I was drinking coffee and turning on the TV to watch a movie when I noticed something on the news. It concerned the shareholders' meeting that Johnson Holdings, Fine Beverage Co.'s parent firm, was having today to report on a number of issues. Known for managing a number of beverage producers, Johnson Holdings is a large, well-known company that has recently improved its performance by purchasing competitors. I turned the channel and began watching a movie repeat, thinking nothing of it. My phone rang unexpectedly just as I was about to take a break and head out to eat after viewing 2 movies. I answered even though it was an unknown number since I felt like I knew who it was. It was Manager Sarah, just as I had suspected. What is happening? You took action, didn't you? She spat vehemently. She was so enraged and upset that she ignored my correction and began outlining the circumstances herself. Today, Manager Sarah was present at the shareholders' meeting when she heard the Johnson Holdings representatives report. Midway through, they particularly addressed Manager Sarah and announced her firing, shifting the conversation to Fine Beverage Co. "Why are you calling me about this?" I inquired on purpose. Angrily, Manager Sarah went right to the point. "Avoid being a moron. David Johnson, your son, is the Johnson Holdings representative." "I know because I overheard him admit it to himself." "Oh, you found out," I mumbled, acknowledging that she was correct. Yes, my son was the Johnson Holdings agent, and I was the one who pushed for her termination. After graduating from college, David and his pals launched a modest beverage firm, motivated by my enthusiasm of my profession. He had a remarkable ability for handling sales, attracting clients, and creating well-liked products and aggressively marketing them. The company surprised everyone with its early success as it evolved into a huge corporation. For a while, it even became a popular issue on television. David kept building his company quickly, starting a number of affiliated businesses and turning the main office into a holding company. He had been boosting his earnings lately by acquiring competitors' businesses and absorbing them into his own. David had spoken with me directly a few months prior to Manager Sarah's relocation regarding the acquisition of Fine Beverage Co. "Dad, sales for your company are doing fairly well. I would adore for our business to purchase it. How do you feel?" I was totally in favor of his suggestion. David made the decision to move through with the acquisition right away, and Fine Beverage Co. joined Johnson Holdings as a subsidiary a month later with the approval of the president at the time. I had to put up with Manager Sarah's incessant taunts and insults after her appointment, and every time I became frustrated, I would always vent to David. I clarified that the other staff members were working in terror and were receiving the same treatment. David promised to take care of it right away. I told David what had transpired over the phone the day I got fired. I described how the president had betrayed me and how Manager Sarah had set me up. David felt incensed, as though it were his own experience. "The company is excellent, but with such staff and a president, things will take a serious turn for the worse in the near future. I'll get started right away." Viewing the matter gravely, David headed straight to Fine Beverage Co. When he questioned the president about my termination, the president acknowledged that Sarah influenced my decision. It seems like Manager Sarah used her influence to make the president regret his choice ever since. David declared that he will bring up the matter at the upcoming shareholders' meeting. But the president said he truly felt bad about unfairly dismissing me and that he would quietly step down the next day. Sarah's voice got even louder when I told her all of this. "Writing a story on me? That is a dishonest ploy. Furthermore, why am I the one being let go? I simply asked the president to terminate you and offered some harsh advice. Is this the right course of action?" the spokesman made reference to. I was uneasy about Manager Sarah's threats, even though they persisted. "You haven't heard the other reasons why you were fired, so hold on." "You weren't let go for that alone," she shot out, irrationally. "What?" I pretended to be ignorant. It appeared that Manager Sarah had abruptly left the shareholders' meeting and headed back to the sales division. I told her the truth about why she was fired, which David ought to have told her. "Manager Sarah, it appears that you have been selling confidential company information. I learned this knowledge from a competitor's staff member." As soon as I heard it, I was astounded. Pump. Sarah, the manager, appeared noticeably shaken. "I recently was fired, so a buddy of mine who works for a competitor gave me a drink to cheer me up." My friend replied to me venting about Manager Sarah by starting to tell me a story. "My colleague and that Manager Sarah you mentioned might be meeting to exchange company information. My acquaintance claims that one night, while working late by himself, a coworker who had returned to pick up something asked for his advice. The colleague gave the explanation that he had been approached by Sarah, a woman from a competing company, who wanted to share corporate information. They began exchanging information when he was convinced to change his mind at first. Their relationship developed over time to involve financial transactions, which put them in a position from which they could not withdraw. They wouldn't be fired if the company found out they were exchanging information. When they were alone, the colleague confided in my pal because they felt imprisoned. As soon as I heard this, I knew it had to be manager Sarah, so I enlisted the assistance of my friend and his colleague to help collect proof. After examining the captured images and audio, it became evident that she was the one responsible. On the day I was fired, I had told David about all of this. I take it that the shareholders' meeting is still going on. David is undoubtedly in the middle of telling everyone there about all of your transgressions. I continued, partially in an attempt to frighten her. I also handed over the photo and audio evidence, so by now, everyone is probably desperately searching for you. Sarah, the manager, was clearly rattled. David was supposed to confront her and reveal her wrongdoings to the public following the shareholders' meeting. But she couldn't take the mood and her rage at me after learning who David was, and that he had dismissed her, so she stormed out in the middle. Nevertheless, her absence had little effect on the plan. The meeting was obviously coming to an end given the time, and the directors were probably hoping she would grasp the problem. Manager Sarah spoke in a pleasant, enticing tone, just as I was grinning with satisfaction. "Hey, Robert, could you kindly testify over the phone that the representative's claims at the shareholders' meeting were all lies in case the directors come seeking for me? I promise to make it worthwhile for you." My spine tingled at her blatant attempt at bribery. I was unaffected by her manipulation of the president and my friend's colleague, who she had probably done in the same way. "You've been made fun of so much, and now you want a favor? Perhaps you've used that strategy previously, but not this time. Is that how you gained the respect as a capable woman?" I teased her back. "That's not true." Manager Sarah angrily cried out in response. "My advancement has always been based solely on my own abilities. Please don't undervalue me just because you're an elderly man who was let go." Her location may have been revealed by her loud voice because voices, presumably the directors, could be heard behind her. "Manager Sarah, please come right now to the president's office. The information trading issue that was brought up at the shareholders' meeting has to be discussed. Johnson, the president, is also in wait." Manager Sarah tried valiantly to establish she was innocent despite her panic. She started enforcing the plan that she had earlier presented to me. "Right now, I'm speaking with the informant, Robert, on the phone. He claims that every piece of information about me is false. He's going to testify immediately, so pay close attention." She puts her phone on speaker and adjusts the level so that the entire department can hear me. "You know what to do now, Robert, don't you? Testify as we already discussed." I feel like I'm being asked to testify that everything was a lie by Manager Sarah. Who will heed such orders? I just opened up and started talking. Yes, everything of President Johnson's remarks during the shareholders' meeting are accurate. I personally gathered the evidence, thus there are no errors. Manager Sarah erupted in a fit of rage following my testimony. "What are you saying? It isn't what we decided upon. Is it impossible for you to do as your manager says? Attest, you worthless moron, that it was a falsehood. You're not my manager anymore, and there was never an arrangement to testify conveniently. Regarding being ineffective, I think I've been fairly successful at cornering you in this way. How do you feel?" She let out another frustrated scream as I quickly reacted. After hearing my evidence and Manager Sarah's harsh comments, the executives quickly put Manager Sarah under restraint, escorted her to the president's office, and ended the call. I let the call end, took a big breath, and headed outside to eat the dinner I had been missing. Later on, I found out that David and the executives had questioned Manager Sarah in depth over her wrongdoings, but she had adamantly denied all of them. Since nothing came of this, David interviewed the person who was directly involved, my friend's colleague, and carried out an internal investigation. Manager Sarah had been spotted by a few staff members meeting with my friend's colleague. The coworker also admitted everything, which prompted criminal complaints from both businesses. After being detained for embezzlement, manager Sarah and the colleague of my buddy were sentenced to prison. The coworker was dismissed while incarcerated, was sued for damages, and is currently working a part-time job to pay off his debts over time. In a similar vein, manager Sarah lost her job and was hit with a big damages suit. After her release, she made an effort to find a new employment, but she was unsuccessful because of the scandal's extensive media publicity. She tried to start taking on night jobs in an effort to pay off her debt more rapidly, but she was turned down everywhere because of her advanced age. She was almost 50. In the end, she took a job as a cashier at a restaurant at night and a supermarket by day. But the scandal was well known even there. Narratives about her using seduction to trade information, verbally assaulting staff, and being firmly brought down by a subordinate she had denigrated went viral. This must have been a living misery for a proud person like Sarah, yet she was unable to give up. She put up with it since she had to pay back her loan as quickly as possible, and she still works hard now. Regarding myself, David set up my return to the company following Sarah's incarceration, and I worked there until my retirement. It was also determined that I would replace Sarah as manager, and I'm currently trying my hardest to guide the staff. Johnson Holdings appointed a new female president to fill the void left by the outgoing president. The newly appointed president is very skilled and genuinely concerned for the staff. She will, in my opinion, greatly expand Finding Beverage Co. I want to help the company behind the scenes even if I won't be able to personally witness its progress because I'll be retiring in a few years. I plan to use my remaining time to make as big of an impact as I can for the benefit of the firm and the future generation. Come on, Jacob. Make sure you give a proper greeting to the board members. All right. Tyler stated this to me in French in front of the board members who had come to check on our department, not even looking at me. I was being forced to welcome them in French by Tyler. With my limited education, it was simple to assume that he was attempting to make me look bad. Go ahead, give it a shot. If I'm lucky, even middle school level French might get you through. He encouraged me with a clap on the shoulder. Tyler thought I couldn't speak French, which was untrue. If I was truly so bad at speaking French, I would probably wind up coming across as naive and awkward in our chat, exactly as Tyler had meant. Unfortunately for him, though, things don't always go as planned in this world. Then I spoke, and that was MTH, the start of Tyler's nightmare. I'm Jacob, just your average man. I consider myself to be just a regular guy, embarrassingly so in comparison to other men. If I had to choose, my passion of solo travel is the only thing that sets me apart. Not that I don't have pals, but I like to travel alone most of the time. I get to indulge completely in my favorite foods and locations, and there's a certain luxury in spending time alone myself. For me, that's the true pleasure of traveling. I used to take whirlwind travels a lot throughout my undergraduate days because I liked to travel. My vacations were rather limited because I didn't have much money, but I loved them because they made me feel alive. I'd achieved this by using things like youth travel passes. My busy job hasn't allowed me to go on these kinds of vacations lately, but if things calm down, I'm thinking about traveling again. I'm constantly daydreaming about my next trip, what to eat, and other things. I work for a multinational corporation now. It is fairly large and has branches all around the world. In addition to Americans, there are foreign workers. There are no problems at work because everyone can communicate in English fluently. Despite how hectic my days are, I find it exciting to converse with folks from different nations. Speaking with them feeds my dreams and increases my want to travel. Fortunately, I had a lot of excellent seniors and juniors as peers, but Tyler, the department boss, was one unruly guy. This man had quite the personality. I was the unfortunate employee in this multinational organization to have an American manager who was such a weirdo. Was it anything I did in a previous life? Tyler regularly flaunts his educational background, bragging about having graduated from Oxford University in the United Kingdom. To be clear, though, he makes this self-professed Oxford assertion. An elitist, such as Tyler, denigrates people based only on their educational background. Unfortunately, Tyler did not include me in his choices, and I was treated with contempt. Jacob's education level is low, so I wonder if it's safe to assign him such difficult tasks. He would frequently remark, "You know, low education worries me." Even when no one asked, he would silently repeat this to himself. This would go on indefinitely until someone answered, "Okay, just give me the assignment and don't worry about my schooling." "Together, we'll work on it," my colleague Olivia stated. Tyler didn't think less of her because she was a graduate of a well-known national university. She consistently interrupted Tyler's divisive comments about me with the appropriate response to his monologues. "I suppose I'll leave it to you if you say so. Please make sure you watch him closely." He said in a quiet voice, "You never know what he might do. He dropped out of middle school." She said, nonchalantly, "I can hear you." Before going back to her work, he returned to his desk and said, "Well then, good luck with that, Jacob." Tyler did not display any signs of distaste while he was saying this. Instead, he was frantically wiping his ear with a disinfecting wipe that he had just used to talk to me. With the same casualness as someone wiping their hands before a meal, he was wiping his ear. Even while there may not be malice, guys may find such behaviors disturbing in women. Inwardly, I find Tyler's constant harassment annoying, but I've been putting up with it with an adult's response. Tyler appears more and more annoyed that I'm not reacting natively. Then there was a notification regarding an inspection by the corporation. Rarely, but once every few years, board members from headquarters visit the workplace to assess conditions. They don't only watch. Occasionally, they also interview people and then provide suggestions for development. Although the notification is frequently given abruptly, with little time to prepare, such as, "We're coming tomorrow, so be ready," it's not exactly unexpected. It ought to be the case, but Tyler wasn't like that. I was totally unaware that guy wasn't your typical kind. I reasoned that after a day of pretending, he would soon reveal his actual nature. But Tyler was frantically attempting to put a veneer over everything. "Hey, be sure to clean everything. Leave no trace of rubbish behind. Complete this document by today. They'll believe our department is slow if we have unresolved business." That's what he was yelling. Then he reclined in his chair and forced his own work onto his subordinates. "Hey, Jacob, you do this data entry. It's due today." He tossed a large stack of papers onto my desk. "This much should be within your capability, even with your limited schooling. Do not pull me down." Tyler needs to be desperate to impress the board members and further his career by behaving like a capable manager. To demonstrate to them that his department operates swiftly, he most likely intends to finish all of the backlog of work by today. We'll definitely wind up working overtime today because we have to put Tyler's tasks over our own. Though ideally I wouldn't want to do Tyler's job, I never know what he might do in the future if I ignore it. To stay out of problems, it's best to obey his directions in silence. Presidents and vice presidents of the company gathered one after the other on the day of the inspection. The upper echelon of our organization is made up of individuals from different nations because we hire talented people from all over the world. In front of such a renowned audience, even I felt anxious. Tyler was particularly keen to advance and was being obedient while masking his typical haughtiness. I whispered under my breath, "He's a different person today," as I watched him. Olivia, who was standing beside me, made an effort not to laugh. It appeared that she overheard my silent remark. "I apologize. Did you hear that?" I said, trying not to show it. I heard it clear as day. "Jacob, you do say amusing things out of the blue occasionally, don't you?" Olivia grinned and continued. Yes, I believe Olivia laughed too much. It's true, though, that Tyler doesn't seem like the same person today. Has something changed about his personality? I concurred with Olivia's statement. The extent to which people can alter due to their wants is startling. Isn't that, Jacob? Exclaimed one of the board members as they filed in. The man was Michael, an older gentleman with an unusual beard that was as well-groomed as Dolly's. My father was friends with Michael, who had assisted me in getting this job. Michael, incidentally, is a division commander at the headquarters. Have you not been here since you joined? How are you doing? To be honest, the amount of changes has been excessive, almost too much. However, I didn't want to bring my problems upon Michael, who was speaking upbeat. Of course, Michael, you're the reason I thrive every day. Thank you so much for that. It's unnecessary to be so formal. He patted my shoulder and added, It's true that I introduced you here, but all the achievements from then on are due to your own abilities. If you keep doing this, you might soon be employed at the headquarters. I became ashamed of myself for receiving such great compliments. I'd replied to Michael's remarks in a responsible manner. Oh, I'm still far from it. Meekness is not necessary. Do you agree with me? He pivoted to face Olivia. Olivia grinned back at Tyler, who declared the morning assembly to be underway. He appeared to be attempting to cut us off from our chat. Michael said, I'll see you later, as he turned to go. Tyler took the chance to confront me very swiftly. You dropped out from middle school. What are you being so arrogant about? I stood there, not understanding a word he said. That was the division chief, Michael, wasn't it? Listen, it's useless to try to flaunt yourself no matter how hard you try. I'll make sure you regret it if you get too carried away, he said. He assumed that I was attempting to gain favor with the board after observing me conversing with Michael. I hoped he wouldn't include me in his group. I dismissed Tyler's remark and went back to my seat. Tyler enthusiastically welcomed the board members as the morning assembly got underway. This department has excellent employees, and because of them, I have happy days. He smiled at me and added, Jacob here is particularly outstanding among these talented individuals. What was he planning? It felt too weird to be praising me in front of the board. Jacob works shoulder to shoulder with us, he said, seemingly mocking us, but also implying that Jacob is a middle school graduate. No, it was mockery without a doubt. Michael gave a nod of affirmation. No, Michael, you're making fun of me. Jacob has stated that he would like to address the board members. Naturally, I hadn't said anything like that. That was his strategy then. He continued, presumably assuming I couldn't understand French. Rest assured, the speech will be entirely in French. It was simple to believe that his goal was to make me look foolish in front of the global audience by pointing out my terrible French. This had to be payback for what I said to Michael earlier. The executives nodded, all right, let's hear it, encouraging me to continue. The fact that Tyler had started making fun of me in front of everyone disappointed me a little. I never imagined that jealousy alone could drive someone to such extremes. To a certain extent, I might see someone embellishing their own value, but anyone who can only make himself seem better by devaluing others is, in my opinion, truly useless. Tyler had unintentionally provided me with this opportunity. I reasoned with myself that I ought to take advantage of the situation and give Tyler back all he had done. I started by making an English introduction in front of the board. Then I started talking in French, just like Tyler had requested. Tyler seemed really surprised to hear me speak clearly. I nearly chuckled at how funny his gaping mouth looked. Olivia's shoulders shook with suppressed laughs, as if she had given up trying not to laugh. I couldn't help but laugh at myself because of the huge contrast between Tyler's and Olivia's responses. Since our business is international, as I have already stated, the board members come from a variety of backgrounds. The managing director is French, the vice president is Spanish, and Michael, the division chief, is, I think, Italian. I continued speaking, fluidly flitting between languages as needed, recalling the nationalities and origins of the board members. I moved from French to Spanish, and from Spanish to Italian, and so on. Tyler had given me a speech without any prior planning, yet I felt obligated to live up to his expectations. I continued the conversation by exposing Tyler's maltreatment of me in multiple languages. I told him all about the suffering he had caused his subordinates. I discussed his conceited attitude toward colleagues with less education and his boastful remarks about having graduated from Oxford. It was unfair to criticize someone for being incompetent just because they had less schooling. As I went on, I disclosed that I had been treated unfairly and that Tyler had arranged this speech to make me seem bad in front of the board members because he thought I couldn't speak French because of my middle school education. The board members' looks became increasingly puzzled over time. I gave the lecture in several languages, and they appeared to grasp the meanings even in other tongues, as might be anticipated from such highly skilled people. It seemed, however, that Tyler could only speak French. At first, he appeared to be following the discourse, but when I changed the language, he became obviously confused and could not keep up. He was confused as he looked about. After I concluded my statement, I heard the board members speaking to one another behind me. Olivia was giggling and gripping her stomach. It seems that she had comprehended the main points of my speech. She gave me a thumbs up and silently said, "Good job," as soon as our eyes locked. Michael frowned as he walked up to Tyler. With an authoritative tone, he questioned, "Is what Jacob just said true?" Tyler, the person in question, muttered that he didn't comprehend what I had said. He was unable to react because he got flustered. Olivia, in the meantime, reached up from behind the board members. "You're the girl from earlier, Jessica. What's that?" Michael asked, grinning broadly. Olivia retorted with enthusiasm. "It's true what Jacob said. It's true that Tyler harasses people and makes fun of them for their educational background." When Tyler realized this, he gave Olivia a fierce look and remarked, "Don't make up such baseless accusations in front of the board members." Olivia usually gave up easily, but not this time. Dignified, she held her ground as though it were her last stand. "This is not a fabrication. Is it correct that Jacob spoke German, Italian, Spanish, and French? Tyler, were you unable to comprehend? You always make fun of other people's educational backgrounds, but isn't that odd? You always say that Oxford is your fort," she shot back, teasing him. Tyler screamed at Olivia, his cheeks flushed with rage. "Get over it." In the midst of the chaos, President Thompson muttered, "That's enough." His few but powerful remarks, laced with more than simply rage, controlled the room. However, it didn't appear to have any impact on the stupid Tyler. Don't trust a word these inexperienced workers say. It is evident that my contributions to the company are greater. He made a direct pitch to President Thompson. These folks are trying to frame me. This middle school graduate cannot speak any other language save English. Tyler angrily said, "He must be bluffing, just making it sound convincing." "For once, please shut your dirty mouth," Tyler said. Elizabeth, the executive director, scowled at him. "I'm not saying that I agree with everything he said, but Tyler, the more you chat, the more real his statements appear." "Am I the only one who feels that way?" she said. And that's when Michael started talking. "I know Jacob fairly well. His ability to speak multiple languages is not surprising given that he has lived in several nations since he was a small child. My mother is half French and half American, and my father is American, thus I have mixed ancestry. From Eastern Europe, my maternal grandfather emigrated to France. Despite my quarter American appearance, I rarely have people mistakenly believe that I am mixed race. Even as a regular employee, my father, a senior executive in a trading company, frequently traveled abroad for work and frequently rented homes abroad. Through his job, he got to know my mother, and they were married, which is how I was born. We spoke in both French and English at home. Although I was born in America, my father's work required me to travel extensively during my early years. After graduating from middle school in America, I relocated to France and enrolled at University PSL in Paris. My last educational credential in America was junior high school because I was only here until middle school. Tyler became pale when he found out I'd gone to University PSL. Renowned in France, University PSL is well known for its exceptionally stringent admissions requirements. But I've always held the opinion that background in education isn't everything. Academic credentials are not the most essential thing, and displaying accomplishments that span decades seems completely meaningless in a society that wants to go forward all the time. I've always maintained that the outcomes you achieve in the future are more important than your educational background. I frequently respond in kind when Tyler treats me like an idiot, but Tyler never appeared to take my remarks. A middle school graduate, and wrote them off as just bitter resentment. In actuality, Tyler was unable to disregard what I stated because he was a graduate of an institution with international repute. I questioned whether I had made a mistake. Tyler appeared deflated and subdued, his lone identity as a high achiever now negated. A moment ago, he had been yelling and raving. Michael persisted in chasing Tyler. Tyler, you have an impressive educational background. But it's dumb to use it as a shield to put yourself above others and make claims of superiority. Genuinely smart individuals evaluate people based on their character rather than their level of education. I fear you're acting foolishly in that regard. Tyler seemed to be at a loss for words as he opened and closed his mouth to respond. His clenched fists quivered, giving off an air of intense frustration. What you've held dear appears to be nothing more than memories, Elizabeth remarked as she perused a stack of paperwork. A graduate of Oxford only in name. Assigning excessive goals to subordinates and piling on the workload. What specific skills have you acquired since joining this organization? Here, it appears that you are the one who lacks competence. Tyler cried out, "That's ridiculous. All I wanted was for my subordinates to grow." He attempted to explain, but at this point, trying to look innocent seemed incredibly fake. Choosing participants for a significant upcoming project involved this inspection as well. Your name was among the candidates, but after today's events, you will no longer be participating in the project, Michael said to Tyler. With tearful eyes, Tyler begged, "Please wait. I put a lot of effort into my business. Perhaps I went too far with my training techniques," he said, but President Thompson cut him off before he could say anything more. Cease undervaluing yourself. The best thing you can do for our organization is own up to your mistakes and make behavioral changes. Do you not think? Tyler received criticism for his treatment of his colleagues and a warning that more actions could result in harsher repercussions. He listened in silence as the board members talked about his future. The inspection was put on hold for the time being because it was too stressful to resume regular work. After a little while, Michael summoned me to a conference room. There I discovered Elizabeth, Michael, and Olivia, who had all been called. Elizabeth complimented me, saying, "Thank you for your courage in speaking up earlier." I apologize for how I brought attention to the matter. It was a bit harsh. "Yeah, it was a little rough," I answered. "You did denigrate your direct supervisor in front of the board, even though Tyler is at fault." "Yes, that is accurate. Even if it could appear that Tyler was solely to blame, making an accusation without following the correct channels can be interpreted as untrue rumors or slander. There ought to have been a set procedure in place to deal with these kinds of problems in order to follow the company's policies," Elizabeth said. Olivia stepped in to defend me, saying, "But Elizabeth, enduring harassment and finally speaking out in such a drastic way is understandable. Yes, that's the reason we won't chastise him this time, and it's quite a talent that he speaks so many languages." Elizabeth gave her a compliment. Her acknowledgement of my skills was really encouraging. "So, Jacob, Olivia, and I would like you to join the big project we mentioned earlier." Olivia and I were taken aback. Olivia's response was actually louder than mine. As for Jacob, the board members believe he's a great talent and would like him to participate. we previously stated. Except for the board members, Olivia was the only worker who agreed with Jacob's statements. Olivia had listened to what I had to say and even supported me. Olivia deserves equal recognition if I am deemed talented, I remarked. It's me too. Olivia questioned, shaking like a tiny animal. Obviously. Elizabeth reassured her. We really want you both on board, and held her hand. Due to the project's worldwide scope, multilingualism was required. Olivia rolled up her sleeves and exclaimed, I might not be as skilled as Jacob, but I can speak about 8 languages well enough for tourism. Olivia started learning languages to converse with locals and seemed to enjoy traveling. She enjoys learning about the many histories of the locations via their respective tongues. I was intrigued by Olivia's desire to learn more about the history and culture of the locations she goes, and I found myself wanting to know more about her as well. Things moved rather quickly once Michael and Elizabeth presented the project, and I decided to take part. I quickly began collaborating with headquarters staff members. Michael made the arrangements that put Olivia and me together. For this first big project, it was felt that working with a coworker would go more smoothly than dealing with a stranger. We once met for business with an Italian company's representative. He tried to flirt with Olivia and even praised her, staying true to his Italian heritage. What's wrong with this man? We're working right now. Are Italians generally like this? Their nation's enthusiasm is unlike anything else, I thought. Olivia appeared rather disturbed, as if she was not used to being teased. Please keep it professional. This is a business meeting, I stated in a gentle tone. However, he made no attempt to halt. I didn't want to push too hard and end up blowing the agreement, but I couldn't help but get annoyed when I saw Olivia being held and flirted with so tightly. I stood in between of them and said, I am the main contact here. Please direct your attention to me, grinning firmly. With a chuckle, the salesman said, Okay, I'll cool it. That was the last time he bothered Olivia, and the business deal was closed. The Italian salesperson abruptly slung his arm around my shoulder as we were ready to depart. He smiled shyly and said, Hey, brother, you should just be honest and go for it. What are you discussing? Perplexed, I asked. Hey, buddy, look at that crimson face. The salesman laughed and added, You really thought you could hide it? Before walking away. I couldn't stop thinking about the upbeat salesman's advice to just be honest, even after I went home. Olivia was something I had been acutely aware of since the conference room episode. I believed that my emotions were limited to admiration. However, witnessing another man approach her during the negotiation caused an odd agitation in my heart. I must like Olivia, I suppose. I was a little sorry, not for falling in love with her, but for letting that naive Italian salesman know how I truly felt. It felt like I was in elementary school when I realized it, since it was brought up by someone else. Every little thing she did was more meaningful to me after I realized how much I loved her. Had she always had such a sweet smile? I thought about how sweet her expressions were. There was no denying how much fun our daily chats and mutual interests were. It seems like you're constantly observing her. Is everything really like that? I overheard the chat between the staff seated behind me as I was eating in the cafeteria. Yes, I think that's the case. Adorable little love. That voice seems to be familiar, huh? Shall I simply go tell them? I could play Cupid, maybe. Avoid interfering. Elizabeth, go for it. Be the love's Cupid. These two would really do it. I knew it, and I had to stop them. Please don't worry about these pointless, frightful things. I objected. Behind me were Michael and Elizabeth. They had been curiously connected with me since that incident. I had no idea Michael was so fun. I worked hard, maybe even harder because of Olivia, despite their jokes. I wanted to present my best self to her. The large project we worked on was successful as a result of our efforts. Everyone at the gathering was beaming as they ate the dinner. I searched the venue for Olivia, but I was unable to locate her. Opening the foyer door, I thought she could have gone outside. Olivia was there with Tyler. I slipped in and listened in on their talk. "Are you certain of this? You may not be able to come back for years," Tyler remarked, sounding less like his typical cynical tone and more like he actually cared for his subordinate. Tyler had stopped making fun of people for their educational backgrounds ever since. I was uncomfortable and couldn't bring myself to talk to them, so I kept listening in private. I heard Olivia remark, "I can't believe you volunteered for an overseas transfer." I was unaware of this. Although I was aware that our organization had opened a new branch in a distant area, her surprising offer to move was unanticipated. Moreover, she had asked for it herself. "Are you certain of this?" Tyler emphasized, "You might not be able to return for years." Olivia just said, "I know everything," in response. Tyler departed, and I went up to Olivia. "Are you really traveling abroad?" Olivia gave my query a shocked glance. "I apologize, I was listening in," I said. "I've always wanted to work overseas, and they requested volunteers this time around." I chose to assume the risk. "The accomplishment of this endeavor encouraged me to move further," she said, her face beaming. "I'm not going to stay there indefinitely. Building a house in America is my dream. It's only a step toward bettering oneself." She smiled and replied, "When I say it, it sounds cool." I hesitated for a second before saying, "There's something I want you to hear. I like you," and I was staring at her. Her eyes were wide as she glanced up at me. "I want to help you in your work, but I don't want to be a burden. Can I come see you occasionally then?" I remarked while rubbing my cheek. I become angry with myself for not being able to express something more witty at times like this. But in return, she gave me a radiant grin and an embrace. "Of course, you have to pay me a visit." I restrained her. Olivia went for overseas a month later. It wasn't the same as before, when all I felt was despair. Both she and I had faith in each other. Olivia says that although her work is demanding, it is rewarding. I like hearing about her updates on anything that goes on outside of work, large and little. I have the matching pair of rings on my finger, and she wears one. The promise rings seemed excessive to me, but Olivia gladly accepted them. She smiled and added, "Sometimes when I feel lonely, I'll look at this and cheer up. At the airport, reminding me how precious and dear she is to me. We share the same rings, so even when we are away, our hearts seem to be linked." I'm planning a lot of stuff right now as I'm lying in bed. I've made the decision to go see Olivia. The thrill of seeing her surpasses the fear of going somewhere unfamiliar. I grin when I consider how to meet her or what kind of stories will make her smile. Although I've always liked to travel, this seems to be the most thrilling trip I've taken thus far. Who you go with matters more than where you go. It's true what they say.